2021 Myanmar coup d'etat. The coup d'etat in Myanmar began on the morning of February 1, 2021, when democratically elected members of the country's ruling party, the National League for Democracy, NLD, were deposed by the Tatmadaw, Myanmar's military, which then vested power in a stratocracy. Acting President Myint Swe proclaimed a year-long state of emergency and declared power had been transferred to Commander-in-Chief of Defense Services Min Aung Hlaing. It declared the results of the November 2020 general election invalid and stated its intent to hold a new election at the end of the state of emergency. The coup d'etat occurred the day before the Parliament of Myanmar was due to swear in the members elected at the 2020 election, thereby preventing this from occurring. President Win Myint and State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi were detained, along with ministers, their deputies and members of Parliament. 2021 Myanmar coup d'etat. Part of the internal conflict and political crisis in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi and Min Aung Hlaing collage. JPG deposed State Councillor of Myanmar Aung San Suu Kyi, left, and Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, right. Date February 1, 2021. Location Myanmar. Result: military coup d'etat. Successful end of civilian rule and re-imposition of military rule. Win Myint and Aung San Suu Kyi detained and deposed 24 ministers and deputies. Deposed. Results of the 2020 general election annulled. New election called. Assembly of the Union dissolved. State of emergency declared for a period of 1 year, later extended to 2 years and 6 months. Min Aung Hlaing's assumption of the role of Chairman of the State Administration Council. Myint Swe's ascension to the office of Acting President. New cabinet formed. New governing body, the State Administration Council, established. Start of the 2021 Myanmar protests and civil resistance efforts. Belligerents. Government of Myanmar. National League for Democracy. Tatmadaw commanders and leaders. Win Myint, President of Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi, State Councillor of Myanmar. Min Aung Hlaing, Commander-in-Chief of Defense Services. Myint Swe, Vice President of Myanmar. This article contains Burmese script. Without proper rendering support, you may see question marks, boxes, or other symbols instead of Burmese script. On February 3, 2021, Win Myint was charged with breaching campaign guidelines and COVID-19 pandemic restrictions under Section 25 of the Natural Disaster Management Law. Aung San Suu Kyi was charged with breaching emergency COVID-19 laws and for illegally importing and using radio and communication devices, specifically 6 ICOM devices from her security team and a walkie-talkie, which are restricted in Myanmar and need clearance from military-related agencies before acquisition. Both were remanded in custody for 2 weeks. Aung San Suu Kyi received an additional criminal charge for violating the National Disaster Act on February 16. 2 additional charges for violating communications laws and an intent to incite public unrest on March 1 and another of violating the Official Secrets Act on April 1. As of April 12, 2021, at least 707 civilians, including children, have been killed by military or police forces and at least 3,070 people detained. 3 prominent NLD members also died while in police custody in March 2021. Just like Myanmar, Afghanistan also have the same problem. I thought 2021 is the worst year since COVID-19. Hope you all safe on your own lane. What's happening in Afghanistan? Taliban form new government after U.S. withdrawal. Taliban consolidate control 20 years after American troops first landed by James Hookway and Saeed Shah. Updated September 10, 2021 9:23 a.m. ET. The Taliban declared the restoration of their Islamic Emirate, days before the 20th anniversary of the September 11 attacks that sparked the U.S. invasion in Afghanistan. The new government places core hardline leaders in top positions and excludes women and members of the Shiite minority, belying its earlier assurances that it would be representative of all Afghans. Tens of thousands of people eligible to resettle in the U.S. and other countries are still trapped in Afghanistan after the last American troops left the country, ending an international airlift. With Afghanistan's neighbors sealing their borders, many of those trying to leave have had to resort to traffickers or other means of leaving the country. On Thursday, Taliban authorities allowed some 200 Americans, U.S. permanent residents and holders of other Western passports to leave the country on a flight to Qatar, the first such departure by air since U.S. forces withdrew last month. President Biden had set a deadline for U.S. troops to leave Afghanistan by August 31st. However, efforts to evacuate U.S. citizens and Afghans who worked with Western governments and agencies were rocked by a suicide bomb attack at the airport that killed nearly 200 Afghans, according to a senior health official, and 13 U.S. service members. Washington blamed an Islamic State affiliate for the attack. Taliban. Slogans have replaced murals of women activists, street vendors started selling the Islamic Emirates flag, and protests broke out for several days in a row. WSJ's Yaroslav Trofimov looks at Kabul's rapid transformation after the fall of the republic. Photo composite, Michelle Inez Simon. What do we know about the suicide attack at the Kabul airport? The attack came on August 26 afternoon as a crowd of Afghans tried to enter the airport, where the U.S. military is attempting to evacuate thousands of Americans and Afghans who had worked with Western governments or agencies. The suicide bomb attack at the Abbey Gate entrance to the airport was accompanied by a gun assault, officials said. One suicide bomber was involved, the Pentagon said. The Pentagon said that in addition to the 13 U.S. service members killed, another 15 were injured. It said a credible threat of attack remained at the airport, while the Taliban said the attack was in an area controlled by the Americans and blamed U.S. forces for lax security. Western governments had earlier warned their citizens of an imminent terrorist attack by a local affiliate of Islamic State and had warned their citizens not to approach the airport. U.S. officials later attributed the attacks to Islamic State's regional affiliate. Islamic State, which is in conflict with the Taliban, claimed responsibility in a report posted by its Islamic news agency. Watch this short video.
In Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, life here is changing rapidly under the new regime of the Taliban, now that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has been proclaimed and that replaced the Afghan Republic that was deposed in the middle of August. Already, the city is changing visibly before our eyes. The visual transformation is quite striking. The city used to be covered with graffiti, with paintings of Afghan national heroes, of women activists, of historical figures. Now a fresh coat of paint is going all over that, and increasingly the slogans of the Islamic Emirate are replacing the visuals that used to characterize Kabul. As you walk around, you can see that merchants are walking between cars, selling big and small flags of the Islamic Emirate. The white flag with the Islamic scripture that has replaced the black, red and green flag of the now deposed Republic of Afghanistan. There are protests now every day, mostly led by women that are being dispersed by the Taliban and yet continue day after day. The Taliban have proven themselves to be a highly successful military force. However, their fighters don't have much experience with the peaceful street protests like we're seeing now. They haven't been trained, they don't have riot equipment, and what they do is shoot in the air, sometimes missing and hitting buildings. The fact that the new government doesn't include any women says a lot by itself. And so that is the reason why many of them are protesting, many of them are down in the streets saying if this government stays the way it is, if there is no transformation, that a lot of the achievements over the last 20 years, at least in the urban areas of Afghanistan, will be gone forever. While the Taliban haven't yet spelled out what rules they will implement, many Afghan women are preoccupied. They're preoccupied and alarmed by the fact that they will probably not be able to continue working in many professions, that educational opportunities will be reduced. The government has already received the degree of international criticism and has not been recognized by anyone, and yet for now it seems to be in firm control of the city despite these occasional demonstrations.